We're talking to Senate Finance Committee Chair, Senator Win Gatchalian. Good afternoon, Senator.
Afternoon,
can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon to both of you.
Senator, we brought you in today to talk about actually yung big news of the other day, which is the Malampaya natural gas fine. So let's start off with that, although we do also want to talk to you about the budget later on. So first and foremost, major natural gas discovery at Malampaya service contract, which is service contract 38, right? I know you know about this. It's good news, right?
Yes,
What
well,
do you
it's
think
good
of it?
news, definitely, because that's a major find after Malampaya, which is 30 years ago. So this is the next major find. The other finds that we had in the different parts of the country are very small. In fact, some of them are not even ranging commercial value. So this is, it's a major find. It has commercial value. Although to give it context and to compare it to the original Malampaya, this is only 4% of the total output of the original Malampaya. So, maliit lang siya compared to the original. Nevertheless, if you talk about symbolism, this big symbol for us, it shows to the world that we still have oil reserves in the country. And that area, the West Philippine Sea, is potentially a potential source of oil and gas. So, meaning that area is very valuable to us.
How much do you know about this drilling expedition? How long did that take? Do you know?
Well, it's been there for the last 30 years.
Hindi. Pero yung this particular drilling expedition, do you know how
For
long it
Malampaya
took?
East.
A long time. If you go back in time, this was originally owned by Shell and Chevron.
Correct.
And even during that time, I think during the Duterte administration, when I was the chairman of the Energy Committee, they would always tell us that the original Malampaya output has been dwindling for the last, I think, almost 5 to 7 years. And it will reach a point that we can no longer use that anymore. But they've been telling, at least me and the public, that there are still potential areas around the original Malampaya. And Shell and Chevron was really very interested in exploring that. Although the criteria for that interest is to extend their contract. Unfortunately, it wasn't extended during the last administration. It was only extended during this administration. That's why the exploration continued. And it took, I think, about 2 years, 2 to 3 years, to find this new oil and gas well. But again, let's be very, very clear. Shell and Chevron knew about this potential already, I think, the last 10 years.
Well, sir, si Energy Secretary Garin was asked yesterday kung itong fine na to will result in lower power rates. Ang sagot naman niya medyo qualified, which is understandable. Sabi niya, not immediately, bababa rin naman yan, pero in combination with the coming online of other renewable power sources. But let's just qualify that kasi of course people are expecting, or people might be expecting na, oy, may bago tayong oil field, gas
Natural
field.
gas field.
And baka bumaba na mga presyo ng kuryente na napakataas sa Pilipinas. Can you qualify that for us?
I'll give you a direct answer, Ed. No, it will not go down. No, I'll give you a direct answer. Because if you look at the formula being used by Malampaya, it's pegged to the world prices. So we're paying also almost the same as the world prices. It's a basket of goods. But if you look at the main formula, it's pegged to foreign oil, it's pegged to foreign gas. So if it's pegged to foreign oil and foreign gas, then obviously it will follow the trend of foreign oil and foreign gas.
It's the same banana.
Correct. But there is the only saving grace here is the formula also have it's a very technical formula. I've seen this many times. It has a feature there that it saves us from shocks that is happening outside the Philippines. So meaning if the oil and gas prices outside the Philippines abruptly goes up or abruptly goes down, that same change in prices will not happen immediately in the Philippines. So it's relatively flat in terms of in terms of the shocks being seen outside of the Philippines. But in terms of pricing, it's the same as what we are paying outside when we import to the Philippines.
So we don't get lower prices, but we get stable prices.
Yeah, that's a good description. We get stable prices, but not lower prices. But on the other side, also we get energy security, which is also very important to us. We don't have to import gas anymore, as many gases as we need, because we now produce our own gas, and that saves us a lot of currency as well.
And sometimes, sir, kasi I read this din na there are times that imported coal is cheaper.
Yes, totoo yan.
Than natural gas power production. So
correct. Ganyan talaga ang global prices, goes up and goes down. No? So depending on what's happening with geopolitics and also supply and demand. But yes, there are times that it's cheaper outside, actually.
Okay, Senator, also, I mean, we wanted to talk to you about the history of Malampaya because, of course, it was entangled in a number of legal issues when Dennis Uй's firm bought out the Shell and Chevron stakes, right? So just for the benefit of our viewers, if I could just backtrack, in 2019, 45% stake was sold to Dennis Uй's firm by Chevron for, I think, $565 million. And then subsequently Shell, I think 2020 or 2021, Shell sold its 45% stake to also Dennis Uй's firm for $460 million. So altogether, those two stakes, naging 90% stake, was worth a little over $1 billion. Again, that's dollars, not pesos. And subsequently, Dennis Uй's firms controlled about 90% of this. However, at some point, you led an inquiry into that transaction, and you, if I recall correctly, you had suggested that the DOE unit under former Secretary Alfonso Cusi had bent the rules to allow that transaction. Could you refresh our memories and update us on what happened to that?
Well, in a nutshell, no, because it's a long process, but in a nutshell, the Senate Committee on Energy, which I chaired before, investigated the sale of Shell and Chevron to the Dennis Uy group of companies. And the bottom line here is they're not qualified. Under the law and under the rules of the DOE needs to approve all transactions to make sure that the buyers are qualified. We have to remember these are natural resources owned by us, Filipinos. And we have to make sure that only qualified operators can harness that natural resource and contribute it to nation building. And in return, they get certain amount of payment, for example, to operate or to sell those resources. So in other words, the DOE has the power to determine that only qualified operators and owners of those companies can operate and harness the natural resource of our country. But that didn't happen. What happened? Former Secretary Cusi, we found out that shortcut the process and didn't follow the law and didn't follow the circulars that prescribe on the selection of qualified operators. And that's why the Senate Committee on Energy and also the Senate as a body recommended to file cases against former Secretary Cusi to the Ombudsman.
And he was indicted in 2024.
Yes, correct. It's now with the Sandigan.
Okay, so it's moving. That case is moving along, and it's with the ombudsman
it's
now.
moving, but it's slow, as we all know what happens here in the Philippines. But it's slow. It's filed with the Sandigan, but it's moving very slowly.
And actually, Dennis Uй's firms overextended themselves is one of the findings from that inquiry. And that is how Enrique Razon's firm was able to take operational control of the Shell stake. So they bought the Shell stake, the 45% that Shell sold to Dennis Uy, which was then eventually bought by Enrique Razon's group for an undisclosed amount. And there was talk back then that it was lower than the price that Dennis Uy had paid because at that point in time he was already desperate. What do you know about that part of the transaction?
Well, definitely, it was an evaluation of. We have to remember that government still owns 10% of SC30, the Service Contract 38, which owns Malampaya, basically. And PNOC Exploration Company, made their analysis during that time when Dennis Uy was buying, Udena was buying the Shell and Chevron side. And they also came up with an analysis saying that Udena has, like you said, overextended themselves. They have a lot of debt, and it's very risky for this company to take over because oil and gas company by oil and gas the business of oil and gas is high risk in itself. You need a lot of capital, but you also experience a lot of risk because you have to explore and you don't know where the gas will be. So PNOC made their own analysis, and that's their analysis that that Udena, the new potential buyer at that time, is not financially capable because of the huge debt that it incurred during that time.
How does it work though? So Udena's sold 45% stake to Enrique Razon's group, but they control another 45% stake, and yet they are in court fighting that that case against the legality of the sale. How does that work? Will they still be able to participate in the extraction of these resources?
Well, what's the current situation right now is the Senate recommended a case filed against former Energy Secretary Al Cusi, and that's in the Sandigan right now. So let's see how it goes. We believe that we have a strong case, and we believe that he has to be held accountable because that's why we have the law, and that's why we have regulations so that the Filipino people will be protected. Resources will only be harnessed by qualified operators, and we have to make sure that only companies who have strong capital can partner with the government in terms of extracting resources.
But your case, what is it seeking to do? Is it seeking to invalidate the original sale, or is it just seeking to hold Secretary Cusi accountable?
I know there's another case filed by, because during that time when all of this sale was happening, there were various groups also filing cases. Aside from the Senate who filed case, I know there's another group who filed the same case in the Ombudsman. I'm not very sure what happened to that. And there's also another group who filed a case in the Supreme Court to invalidate the sale to Udena.
The one where he was indicted in was an anti-graft case, if I recall correctly. This is 2024.
Yes. There are, I think, 3 cases that were filed, all related to Malampaya.
But with the benefit of hindsight, how do you think all of this happened? I mean, Malampaya is the single most important power source for the country, if not for Luzon.
Yes, it is.
And it's a critical resource. So how does it happen that it could end up in the hands of someone who may not have been legally, financially, and technically capable of running it after all? I mean, did you have reservations about this sale even back then, back in the previous administration?
That's why the law is very clear that only qualified operators can operate here in the Philippines and harness our natural resources. That's why we have a law. And that law clearly spells out that before any sale can happen, DOE must approve that sale, and DOE must conduct due diligence on who the new buyer is or who the buyers are. So that's why that's why we have these laws, to make sure that only the best and the most capitalized companies can operate natural resources here in our country. And we have to also remember that these natural resources are owned by the state and owned by the Filipino people.
Oh my.
So if operators will have problems operating it will affect us. Instead of being a potential, it will become a liability to the detriment of the country.
That also reminds me of the solar power
Yeah.
projects.
I mean, yun na nga yung point, Senator, no? Nakalusot eh. I mean, I know you're challenging it in court right now, but it shouldn't have come to this point to begin with, right? If the laws
Right.
were sound enough, we should have not sold it to someone who may not have had the technical capacity and the expertise to run such a huge natural resource operation, right? And even back then, I remember there were questions already about Dennis Ui's capability because he came from nowhere. He didn't have a huge background in oil and gas, although of course he ran Phoenix Petroleum, if I recall correctly. But that's different from running an oil drilling and extraction company,
That's
right?
importation.
Running gas stations are hugely different. Pero nakalusot pa rin. And now I'm wondering in my head, with the benefit of hindsight, do you see any loopholes here that need to be closed to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Actually, the law is quite clear, and the circular subsequent to the law is also quite clear. There's a process there, and the simple process here is the DOE should evaluate the new buyer. It has to evaluate its technical capabilities, its financial capabilities, as well as the legal aspect of the transaction. And if you don't follow the law, then you have to be held to account because you basically circumvented the law in order to award it to an operator that is not qualified. So, in my opinion, it's not only it's not a defect in the law, but it's the
It's implementation.
adherence to the law itself. Meaning, those former DOE employees did not follow the law because obviously they favored a company that is not qualified.
Sir, i-segue ko na yung saglit since we already are at that part. Kasi I keep recalling the problem with the
Renewable.
Solar Philippines and the franchise granted to Solar para sa Bayan. DOE says 43 contracts canceled because almost no production, no output.
Zombie contracts.
That's only
what
for Solar
Secretary
Philippines.
Garin called it.
Iba pa yung sa Solar para sa Bayan, which is a subsidiary, 25-year franchise and all that, almost no output din daw.
And not just that, but we found out it was recently shut down.
Yeah,
just a few years after it won the congressional
parang wala
franchise.
lang, it's not operational na pala. Are these covered by laws? Are these covered by in the same way that Malampaya, the DOE is supposed to be looking closely into who are granted these special permits to?
Definitely, Ed. These contracts, this service contracts, to put it simply, to harness the natural resource in our country, you need service contracts, whether it's oil, it's gas, it's solar, anything related to natural resources to generate energy, you need a service contract because it's owned by the state. It's owned by us, the Filipino people. And to secure that service contract, the DOE should conduct a due diligence to see whether the company is capable in terms of technical capability, in terms of financial capabilities, and others. And when you're awarded a service contract, there's a time frame, meaning you have to
Produce.
If it's oil and gas, then you have to drill and find oil and gas. If it's solar, then you have to install solar panels and use the service contracts. But I've heard cases that companies just sit on the service contract or they flip it around to other companies. So what happens is they select the best, let's say the best areas or the most potential areas. They secure a service contract and they either flip it or they either sell it to somebody else. That's not the essence of these service contracts. You have to use it. If you don't use it, then you lose it.
But as far as the laws is concerned, you don't think that anything needs to be changed to ensure players or would-be investors try to game the system as we're seeing now, right?
What's important now is enforcement. I believe that we have adequate laws and guidelines and procedures. But if you don't enforce, and you're also corrupt, meaning you favor one company or you favor an individual, then you're not abiding to the laws and the guidelines that are that were promulgated in the operations of those service contracts. So enforcement is important, and adherence to the law is also important. But in the past few years, we've seen that people just take the laws and guidelines. They don't follow it.
The 43 contracts that Secretary Garin told us that they canceled, that were held by Solar Philippines and its other subsidiaries, amounted to a little over 11,000 megawatts of solar power, or would have been a little over 11,000 megawatts, which is a huge chunk. But she said, and we asked her, are you worried that this is going to set us back from our targets with the Philippine Energy Plan, and also, of course, the commitments that we made to ensure renewable takes up a bigger piece of the pie in terms of our power mix. Does it worry you? Is that something? I mean, you've been in this space a long time. Is that something that strikes
Definitely.
you as off?
When you award service contract, the assumption there is the contractor or the operator will operate it for a specified. There's a time period for that operator to set up and also to explore those service contracts. But at a certain point, it has to produce oil and gas. It has to produce energy, and that's taken into consideration in our Philippine Energy Plan. Every year, the DOE releases what we call the Philippine Energy Plan, and all of those information is taken into consideration, the supply and demand. So if the promises don't come in, then obviously the supply will not come in, and we will have problems in the future.
So itong 11,000 megawatts, that's not going to happen anymore. At least not,
Not that way.
Not through the companies that Congressman Leandro Leviste controls. That I don't know how. Secretary Garin said they've got plans to make up for this loss, for this hole, right? But again, basing on what you know and your expertise in the energy sector, do you think we would still be able to achieve our targets despite this?
Well, one good thing happening in the energy sector now under this administration is there were a lot of reforms that were undertaken in the last 3 years. One of the major reforms is foreign companies can now own 100% of solar companies.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why the Philippines now is one of the bright spots for renewable energy in the world. So if those contracts can be given to serious and capitalized companies and companies that are really serious in terms of building solar energy in our country, then give it to them and then let them operate so that we will have energy security. We will strengthen our energy security situation.
Okay, we'll leave that topic there. We're running out of time. So if we could just pivot now to the 2026 budget, which of course you, along with a few others in the committee, in the bicameral committee, worked overtime to make sure it passes in time. Are you happy in general about where the budget stands, the 2026 GAA?
Well, I'm the chairman, so I should be happy.
100% happy, Sen? Or there's some things...
101% happy.
Or
Would you have wanted
would you have wanted more?
200% pa nga eh.
Huh?
200% happy pa nga.
200% happy?
Siyempre, I'm the chairman, so obviously I will say that. But kidding aside, yes, we have we're very proud and we're very satisfied with the 2026 budget. It's not perfect. Let me qualify that because it was a learning process for me and for a lot of the members, especially with what's happening right now. But in terms of the reforms that we included in the budget, in terms of how we allocated the budget, we're very satisfied and we're very happy with it. Just to boast a little, the 2026 budget has the biggest education budget ever, no? At 4.3% of GDP. That's about 1.3 trillion pesos scattered in the three biggest education agencies of our country: the DepEd, the CHED, and the TESDA. DepEd alone, basic education, got about 1 trillion pesos. And it will address a lot of the gaps that we have experiencing in many years. So we're very proud of that because me as a former chairman of the Basic Education Committee as well, we've been advocating to breach the 4% threshold for our energy budget, and we've managed to do that this time around.
Congratulations on that. And of course, it is mandated by law that education gets the biggest budget each year. But talk to us about what happened with the assistance programs like MyFIP, because last time that we spoke to Senator Ping about the budget, he told us that the Senate was more or less on the same page when it comes to MyFIP, which is that you don't want it in the budget anymore because it's a symbol of patronage politics, right? Ito yung guarantee letters that have been controversial lately. But in the end, the final version still had allocated...
There's MyFIP, there's TUPAD, there's AIX.
Yes, so some allocation from MyFIP, TUPAD, and AIX. What happened there, and how are the conversations with your congressional counterparts go?
The medical assistance will go to the people. It will not go to the pockets of politicians. No, it will be. It's impossible to corrupt that because it will go straight to those constituents, our constituents who are in dire need of hospitalization assistance. So it will not. I don't know of any way of corrupting the medical assistance program. As to the issue of patronage, we have included in the 2026 budget a provision there. I think the media calls it as the anti-EPAL provision. And the provision there bars politicians from being part of the activity in relation to financial assistance and the other assistance being given to our constituents. So in other words, politicians cannot take credit. They cannot be part of those assistance program. And on another side, it's the executive that drafts the guidelines. So in other words, it's the executive that has the power to make sure that these programs are not being politicized. And that's very clear. As soon as the budget is over, it's now in the hands of the executive on how to prevent the politicians from taking credit or meddling with the distribution of those distance.
Yes, sir, but that addresses the traditional problem of patronage as far as yung mga EPAL na distribution is concerned. Politicians who are distributing ayuda and all. But the patronage starts way before the funds are even released. We're talking, of course, about the guarantee letters that have been also controversial from the very start. I'm not sure exactly how that was addressed by the provision that you said. I understand that the provision is important, but does it also address the guarantee letter issue?
Well, one good thing about that provision, Section 19, the anti-EPAL provision, is it triggered a reform in the guidelines with the executive. That's why all of the different agencies are now reforming or changing their guidelines to take into consideration the anti-EPAL provision. The Department of Health is now revamping their procedures to take into that consideration. I've also heard Malacanang saying that they will change or revamp the guidelines in order to take into consideration that anti-EPAL provision. So in other words, that provision triggered the changes in the guidelines by agencies giving those assistance to our constituents. So the DOH is revising their guidelines. DSWD is also revamping their guidelines. So they're all revamping their guidelines. But then at the end of the day, and it's in the hands of the executive. The guarantee letters, there's no law that created that guarantee letter. In fact, there's no law that created
that's true.
It's the executive that created the medical assistance. So if they want to change the guidelines tomorrow, even without that anti-EPAL provision, they can do it. They don't have to wait for a law to change it because it's a program created by the agency.
No, I guess what the question there also is, why does it have to go through the politicians in the first place, right? Why not just put that chunk of money into PhilHealth, all right? So it could cover more of these diseases and more of these hospitalization expenses. So help us understand what happened there, because I know that Senate didn't want it, but what we heard as well was that Congress, a few members of Congress wanted to push for MyFair.
Well, this is the reality on the ground. I'm a politician and I get a lot of requests for assistance. Whether it's scholarship, to be honest about it, I get it every day. I just got it this morning. We get requests for medical assistance. We get requests for scholarship, even for livelihood programs. We get requests every single day. So as a public servant, we should be able to refer it to the agencies that can help them. So that's what I do, actually. I don't deny that I refer people to agencies so that the agencies can help them. But that should be, there should be a mechanism for politicians and public servants to refer to agencies and allow the agencies to help our constituents. Because I don't want to tell my constituents that I cannot help them. I cannot tell my constituents that I'm powerless, because they want, first of all, I'm not powerless. I can refer to the agencies to help our constituents. Like, for example, in Valenzuela, if there are constituents who are in dire need of assistance, for example, nasunugan sila, which happened a few weeks ago, we should be able to refer those victims to the agency so that the agencies can help them. So that's as far as what we can do. Now, we cannot meddle on the operations of the department. We cannot dictate, let's say, oh, bigyan mo ito ng ganito, that's beyond our mandate already, because we're part of the legislative branch. So we have to be very clear with the realities on the ground and what we can do and what we cannot do.
Book, education?
Go education and then DPWH. Go.
Okay, sir. Something also close to your heart, the issue of education. Yung EDCOM 2 has released results that are quite startling. I'm sure you've already seen this. Proficiency rates dropping from grades 3 to grades 12. The numbers are really astounding. Grade 3, 30% lang ang pwedeng tawaging proficient. Grade 6, it's 19%. By grade 12, 0.47%.
May domino effect kasi. If you are not proficient at the early grades, in key stage 1 na tinatawag natin, kinder to grade 3, obviously it will create a domino effect. If you cannot read a simple story at an early age, you cannot read a complex story when you reach the higher grades. So may domino effect siya talaga. The good thing is there's actually good news. About 2 years ago, the Department of Education implemented what we call the Matatag curriculum. This is the new curriculum
The streamlining.
for basic education, K to 10. And the new curriculum decongested the subjects and the number of competencies. And that's now, and we're seeing good signs that the decongested curriculum is helping not only our students in terms of comprehension and also mastery of subjects, but also helping our teachers to teach more efficiently. So I've seen initial reports by the PIDS that the new curriculum is actually helping our students in terms of mastery. And once, of course, may domino effect rin yan. No? Because we're just seeing the first grades. Hopefully in the next few years, once this new curriculum has been rolled out completely and students are moving to the upper grades, will improve proficiency, will reverse the trend in terms of proficiency.
Pero sir, I understand din that although yes, students appear to be improving, pero the teachers' well-being naman daw is suffering.
That's why the new curriculum is important, because it decongested the number of subjects. It actually reduced the number of subjects, reduced the number of competencies by 40%, almost half. No? So it gave the teachers more time to teach, more time to explain, and those students that really need drilling down, the teachers will have more time. It's really also helping our teachers.
Okay. And finally, Senator, we're running out of time, but I wanted to touch very briefly on the DPWH budget for 2026. underwent a lot of wrangling, and I know it's come down to the version that everybody seems to be okay with, seems to be happy with. But are you confident that this is not going to be abused anymore? And I note your appearance yesterday at the Blue Ribbon Committee inquiry, wherein you pointed out that parang it's a very the DPWH rules make it very contractor friendly, as in hinahabol yung pondo rather than yung pondo yung mahabol sa project. Talk us through that.
Typically kasi when you have diba, if you have the normal process is I have a project and we look for funds for that project. Because I have a need. That's why I need this project, so we look for funds. But what's happening in the past is may pondo, hanap ka na lang ng project, and
Correct.
those projects are typically useless or not even of a feasibility study. So that's why we're now experiencing this this problem that we are seeing with flood control and also other issues. We're very confident. So far as the 2026 budget is concerned, we're very confident that this budget cannot be corrupted because all of the projects have coordinates. If we're talking about multipurpose building, it also has details, granular details, and all of the other infrastructure projects, like for example, farm-to-market roads, irrigation, also have coordinates and station numbers. So in other words, you can pinpoint exactly where the project is. You can, by just looking at the project, you'll know exactly how long is the project. Before, you cannot do that. So, parang nanguhula ka kung nasaan yung project. But now, you can actually measure the project using the 2026 General Appropriations Act. The other side is implementation, and that is now in the hands of the executive again. The bidding procedures, the selection of contractors, everything now is within the hands of the executive. Even though we have an airtight budget, if it's implemented by corrupt officials and they will again circumvent, not follow the guidelines, circumvent the procedure, then we will see the same corruption again happening. So that's why we will conduct an oversight in the next few weeks. And we want to also focus on the bidding procedures of the government because we have a new bidding law. And the bidding law is supposed to be simple but airtight. So we want to make sure that that's implemented.
Right. That's exactly what I wanted to ask you about next, which is the human intervention side of things. But
Yes.
we have to leave that there because we've run out of time. Thank you so much for...
Itong isa mo.
Wala, I'm being told to wrap up. I'm sorry.
Last lang. Sir, kayo rin ba nagulat nung sinabi ni Curly Discaya na feeling niya ninanakawan sila
Parang
ng pera?
sila ninanakawan.
Sinungaling yun, sinungaling. Dapat makulong yun, sinungaling. Siya pa yung naging victim out of everything. No? So, nagsisinungaling siya. So, we don't believe him.
Okay.
Okay.
We will really have to leave that there. Thank you so much for talking to us and
Thank you.
explaining
Thank you,
all of
guys.
that.
Thank you.
Senate Finance Committee Chair, Senator Win Gatchalian.